Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Welcome to the Healing Generation podcast. My name is Ariel Jimenez, and I will be one of your hosts for today's segment. Once again, we want to take a moment and welcome you to today's segment of this podcast, a podcast that is focused on the intergenerational healing from all aspects and from all people of all walks of life. Today, we're going to get an opportunity to hear from one of our younger folks on how she's connected to healing and how she learned from participating in the Young Women's Warrior Project. But before we get to our guest, let me pass the palabra over to Alejandro, who will be my co-host for today. So Alejandro, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Alejandro Berens Osuna. I'm one of your co-hosts for the youth portion of the Healing Generations podcast. I'm very excited. We are joined today by one of our awesome youth, Addie, and I'm just going to share a bit about her. Adilene Gutierrez was born in the city of Michoacan, Mexico, raised in San Jose, California. She has recently graduated high school and is on the path of finding her purpose. She's a lover of arts and has been painting for almost 7 years. In high school, she got connected to the FIT program in the city of San Jose. From there, her journey began with NCN. She has dedicated her time to growing and learning more about herself, and through these organizations, she has been able to accomplish many things. In the upcoming year, she wants to expand her art business and make new connections. Welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm so nervous, but hey, it's a long time. Dude, we've been saying so. Finally, I'm so excited. I think that's why I'm so nervous, but...
Well, we're definitely happy to have you, and I know our listeners are going to soak up all of the medicine that you have to offer. Definitely, it's overdue. We've been wanting, to interview you for a while and just share space. We do it in so many different ways, but I think being recorded where people can share it, people can listen to it, I think is definitely going to be beneficial to a lot of people. But before we get started, even into any of the teachings, any of the medicine, any of your art, we simply just want to know about you. So who is Adilene Gutierrez? Can you tell us a little bit about your conocimiento?
I'm Adilene Gutierrez Quevedo. I am 22 right now. I love doing art, and art has been something that it's a learning virtue. Like, I've learned a lot through art, and one of the biggest thing I learned through art was my patience. I'm still struggling with that because I've had enough patience with it where it's like I learned to have patience, but now I'm like, okay, I'm tired of waiting. What's going to happen next? So that's another lesson. I'm like, okay, there's also like patience and working, So I can't just be patient. I have to work with that patience so I could see progress. And I think learning about myself has made me realize what I really want for myself, where I belong. And I feel like that's what led me here and like to this podcast. Like, I love connecting and I love making connections with people. So lately I've been reading this book. So if I tell you about myself, I could say that I've changed a lot, and I don't want to like talk about my bad, and I acknowledge it now. But back then I used to feel like the bad was just taking over me, where I forgot to talk about the good things too.
That's right.
So now that I'm older and I'm like already done through the bad, I'm like, I could actually look back and like talk about it now and be like, this is what I learned from it. And so now I'm like, I was crazy back then. I think I was just wild. If I'm being honest, I think sometimes I'm scared to like show that, but I was full of like pain, full of questions. Like, I was just curious about life, and I had to grow up really fast. So I feel like that's why I was the way I was, and I never really looked at it like that. I just blame myself a lot for these things. So I always say that about myself. I am a little bit like loca. I do enjoy life to a little bit to the extreme. And I think that's where I learned a lot of my things. I learned a lot from my mistakes, from having that sense of like, I don't care, or like, okay, I don't, but no, I do care about my life. And I feel like that's where most of my growth has come in, that I care about my life, that I want something good for my future, that I that I love the people that are surrounded by me. So I'm a caring person. That's what it comes to, that I care about myself now. I'm not just thinking about myself. I'm thinking about others too, and how my actions can impact them too, and what I'm doing could really affect them. So I think that's why I changed from a lot of my ways. And I've decided to just make those changes and grow and take that hard path of like, you got to do it no matter what. And I think that's where I'm like, my strength comes in, and just, I feel really happy to take those steps because it's so much easier going down than up. So I feel like I'm so happy to share that with people because at some point, like, I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know nothing. I wouldn't be able to describe myself. I wouldn't be able to be like, this is what makes me me. Like when people ask me, like, tell me a little bit about yourself, I was like, honestly, it's all the experiences that I felt, like all the things that I went through. It's who I am. Even the bad, like I said, but I think the good thing about it now is that now I could look back at those things and be like, it happened for a reason. Like it needed to happen no matter what. So
Yeah.
now I'm just a participant, and I'm like, okay, my choices and everything I do is going to lead me to where I'm headed. So now I make better choices. Now I'm like being a little bit more selfish in a good way, but also like thinking about others. Cause I have noticed that before I would put so much thought for others that I would forget about myself. So now I'm like, okay, selfish is a good thing, but it's also like, don't be too selfish where you're hurting others. So I would say that about myself. I've grown a lot over this past years, and I'm so happy. Like I found so many new things about myself. Like I'm a family person. I don't care about material gain. I've lost myself from a 9 to 5, and I was like, man, like I miss my friends. Like I didn't feel myself. The loss of connection from my family makes me feel just like I'm not here for my purpose. Like I'm not living for my full potential. Like I need to be surrounded by people I love, like and my friends, like my family. So I do like to work, but I also love my family. So those are some things that I'm currently finding out about myself.
Of course. And if I could just jump in real quick and say that we've had the pleasure of knowing you for a couple of years and seeing that progress, seeing that growth, seeing all aspects of you, right? The firecracker, the calm, the healer, the, you know what, I got to speak up and you're going to hear my voice. So we've seen all aspects of you and have been privileged to really see that growth. So let me bring you back to another question.
Yes.
Thinking about when you first got introduced to Circle and you first got introduced to like Yesenia and everybody part of that circle, how was that introduction for you? How was that first interaction? How was that first circle for you?
Oh my God, if I'm being honest with you, I remember when I first joined it, I already had experience through circles. So I was excited. But this was a different circle. Like as soon as I heard like sacredness, like healing, just like what it brought, like I just automatically felt like I belonged there. So like I didn't know where it was going to be headed. And I think this is what Yesenia, I'm so grateful for her bringing me in, and like, because if I'm being honest, I kind of didn't like knew what I was getting into. But the fact that she made it so safe and so like a space where I could feel like, oh, okay, like I'm gonna be okay here. I already experienced something like this. I'm familiar. Like she trusts me to be here, you know? So I think that's what made me really just open to the whole groups, like the welcoming, like even though I didn't know where I was headed, the fact that Yesenia just believed in me and just seeing that in me, I was just like, this is where I'm meant to be at. And it's like, it's just like a soul connection that I felt there, as in like, this is where I need to come. Like, I don't know, my soul just wanted to be there, because at some point I'll be like, I don't want to go, but something in me just told me just show up. And I think those, I don't want to go, it was just that, you know, I didn't feel good that day, or I just didn't want to get up. But I always felt like something in me just told me, even on those bad days, was like, no, you need to go. Because if you're having a bad day, that means you need to go. Like, you know, so that's why I was just always looking for answers. And when as soon as those groups started coming to me, I was like, I need to just sit down and see what this has for me. And I had the right person aside of me, and we connected really good. So the fact that I just made that connection with her, and I already had experience other groups, it was just like the first thing I like to feel when I do something is welcome. So that's how I felt. I felt just like, you're good here. And not gonna lie, like the food and all those activities kind of had me there. But other than that, I think that's where I was like, it's not about that no more. That's when
Hmm.
I started getting connection with more with myself. And I was like, I really like these groups. And ever since
Yeah.
my first group, I liked it. I was hooked on. I was like, I need more information. I need to learn more. And I'm so glad. Like Yesenia was just someone that just really was like, made me feel so welcome. Like if I was ready for it, like if I already knew what was gonna happen, and
Hmm.
just it was nice to start from the beginning and like go through a couple groups and then finally going to my retreat was awesome. Like I remember my first group, I already wanted to go to a retreat. I was like, hold up, girl. And then once I went to my retreat, I was like, so many tears, but they were healing tears.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I really relate to what you said when you were talking about like what Circulo did for you and, you know, like your sacred purpose. And when I heard the word sacred and purpose together, it was the first time I realized like maybe this job is like my sacred purpose, you know, and like really just like it was constantly bringing me back. And that was the one thing. It was the accepting environment, the welcoming of everyone. I mean, the snacks were a little perk, yeah. But, you know, just making family with the people you're sitting in circle with. So I want to ask you, like, what made you want to constantly come back to group and, you know, make that effort to get out of bed every morning to go to group and sit with these people for an hour and listen to these lessons?
You know what? I think it's my family because I always want to learn more about people and their struggles and how they feel pain, because I like to express that too. So when I express my emotions and when I express how I feel, I think being surrounded by people and they express the emotions, like I feel like it's just we're all kind of like pulling out things out of each other, that like this, creating this web of like we're all in the same thing. We're all in the same pain. So I love sharing that. I think it's just my emotions that pull me there, of like wanting to learn about feeling, that it's okay to feel these things. Like we're not alone. And I think that's what always took me back, like wanting to learn from those experiences that other people go through and I don't have to go through. You know, I think that's smart of me. I don't know. I don't have to go through things to learn. I could just look at someone and be like, okay, like, no, the reason why they do this, or, you know, learn from them and avoid certain situations. So I think that's what led me. And it has made me learn a lot about my family. Like, you know, we all express our emotions differently. And that's why I'm like always showing up, because I want to heal my family and I want to heal myself as well. And I feel like as soon as I start doing that within myself, my family also gains from that too.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because I think, when I came to Circulo as a participant at first, seeing how other people shared really blew me away. I'm like, I didn't know that we could do that. And I didn't know that we can share in that way. And then when you described the web of how we're all interconnected was another way, because there was things that I wasn't ready to share that I heard come out of other people that I was like, did he really experience my same reality? So I'm glad that you shared it that way.
Yeah. I love that about Circle. Like, I'm a feeler, so being in touch with all these feelings and just emotions just thrives me.
No, I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, even in our last training, you know, some things that the people were sharing, like, I really connected to it. And it's a truth that I've never spoken myself and I've never said out loud. And just to hear, like, these really brave people, like, openly share their story, it allowed me to, you know, come to acceptance of a lot of stuff that I was going through. And, you know, I think that's just one of the lessons that we really learned from Círculos, like how to relate to others and take that in for ourselves and start on our own healing journey. So I would ask you, like, what teachings or like what lessons have really resonated with you and like helped you in your everyday life to be the person you are today?
Palabra has been one of my biggest ones, because when I first joined Circle, I wasn't really, I'm gonna be honest, really wasn't a person of my palabra. And by that, I feel like within myself.
Mm.
whatever I was saying, whatever wasn't matching my walk. I wasn't walking the talk. I was just talking.
Mm.
And that would led me to realize that, okay, Adi, you feel this way, you want these changes, but you're not sticking to your own palabra. You're not showing up. You're not putting effort. So you're not about your palabra. So that's what just really like, if I wanted to join something and if I wanted to be part of a circle, I had to embrace that. So I feel like since I first started my circle, that was the first thing that I got introduced to. So I was so glad because back then, like I said, I wasn't really a person of that. So learning about what the value of palabra is, like the whole, what it just means in general, like it's not just, oh, your palabra, like no, like it comes with a lot of work, with a lot of pain, sacrifice, like just things that you don't know about yourself. And that's why I was like, man, I need to be about my palabra. And once I started being about my palabra, like I started growing, like I started seeing so many changes. So I would say that's one of my teachings. Like palabra brought so much teachings to me. And I'm so glad because it has made me a very strong woman. It has made me more hardworking. It's made me do things like, I would say, graduate high school, because when I started doing circles, I was in high school. So if I didn't get that experience from like how to heal and how to cope with certain things while I was in high school, I feel like I would have never graduated because I was too focused on my pain. I was too focused on other things and I wasn't really healing. I was doing the opposite of healing, you know? So now that I look back, I'm like, man, I'm so glad that I didn't go that way. I don't know where I would have been. I feel like sometimes I don't give myself like that you did good because I expect more, but no, like that, I feel like that's where my calmness comes now because I'm like, Adi, like you're okay. Like you did the right thing. And I feel like that's one of my main things I've also learned too. Like that it's okay to acknowledge my pain, but also don't let it get me stuck in one spot, like grow from it and acknowledge that hurt because at some point I was just angry. I was like, nah, like mad at the world. Like, why are you doing this to me? But no, now I'm like, I've learned from that. I feel like that's what group brought to me. Like that calmness, like, you problems ain't gonna do nothing to me. Like, it's okay. Like, you're just a baggage. Like, I
Well,
got a
let,
lot
let
of
me
gifts.
tell you this. Let me tell you this, that you didn't do good, you did great. Because I saw you kick butt in high school and you did amazing and how you maneuvered through every single thing. And I would say sometimes, we can't focus on healing because we're just too busy surviving. And when we're in that space, we're so busy about what am I going to do next? What am I going to eat next? What class am I going to have next? That we're so busy just surviving that we can't focus on healing yet. That's just so far away from us, so out of our grasp that we're not there yet. But I'm glad you got connected, and you've been connected on every level. You first came into the circle. After you finished the circle, you then went to the retreat, and then you did the Young Warrior retreat. And then when you came back, now you're a certified circle keeper, and you're able to host your own circle. So you've done almost every level of palabra and every level of that. So let me ask you a question. Out of all of those experiences, which one do you feel like impacted you the most? Was it the retreat? Was it the training? Was it the circle? Talk about one of those and what about it really just captivated you?
Oh, man.
No
All of
pressure.
them,
No
all of
pressure.
them did. I would say all of them did, but the one that really just changed me and changed the way I look at life and just really made me dig deep into my soul was the retreat. And that was the National Compadres. That one was the one that just set me off, set my soul on fire. And I think being part of that retreat, I remember when I first wanted to go to a retreat and I was like, now that I look back, I was like, I was not ready. I was not ready when I said that first year when I said I wanted to go. No, I feel like I had to go through these steps first and then get to that because it was just perfect. Like that moment and just how I was around 18, like, kind of turning from a teen to like now a young adult. So I'm like, oh, transitioning. So I feel like it was the perfect time. And from that retreat, I'm telling you, I didn't take no makeup. And if you know me, I like wearing makeup. I got in the car and I told Zenny, I was like, I'm not bringing no makeup. I already know I'm going to cry. And I did. Those whole 3 days, I was crying. And one thing about myself is that when I was growing up at home and I would cry, they'd be like, Llorona, or like, like you cried too much. So I feel like those cryings and everything, I kind of hid them. And so when I got to the retreat and I felt that sisterhood, we only had 3 young women, I remember, but the rest were like maestras. So it was just different. I was just like, man, like I just felt surrounded by like strength, like so much strength, so much beautiful faces that I just felt so comfortable. And it's crazy because when like I was in the retreat and like these women were talking about themselves and the experiences that they were going through, they were saying that they hold it on for so long that it finally came out at the moment. And when they said that, I was like, man, like I don't want to hold mine for that long. Like I want to be like let it out right now. Like so that way I could not carry them with me, because when they would talk about it, like I just felt like it was not necessary for them to carry it for that long. But like they felt so safe and so welcome that we finally got the chance to. So seeing that from them, I was like, I want to be able to let go of my pain now, then carry it with me. So I let a lot of things out. I was just like, this, that. Like I was just, but one of them that really captured me was when I first like didn't know how to talk about my experience, and Maestra Debbie, she held my hand and she was like, let's do a prayer for her. Like, let's chant like, and I was like, trust me, I was kind of like, I don't know, like I never really got this experience. Like I'm kind of shy, like, but something of me, as soon as she grabbed my hand, I was just like, it was also that feeling of like your grandparents. That's what I felt. And I was just like, oh my God, like I just felt the guidance of somebody like wise, and I hold their hand and they were all in a circle and they were chanting. Like, I think it's a song, La Canción del Sol. Like that's all I remember. And while they were doing it, I felt like this amazing woman power, like strength, like sisterhood, like I never felt before. And as soon as I felt that experience, like I just felt like a lot of the things that all of the hurt and all of my pain I was carrying was vanishing. And it was so beautiful. When I experienced that, I've changed. Like I felt brand new. They put flowers on me. They smudged me down and they threw flowers on me. Like it was raining flowers. And when they did that, like I remember having some left on me. And I was just so like sensitive, like a baby, like when you're like that's like crying and like they couldn't even breathe no more. That's how I was. So I was like that. And then Sunny comes and she puts a blanket around me and she hugs me and she puts me back to my seat. And that's the moment that I was just like, I felt refreshed. I felt new. I wanted to make those changes for myself because I feel like all that energy was just so positive, so uplifting, that backing down from those changes and backing down from my palabra was just not my thing. Like I didn't want to do that. I just felt like it was wrong. So when I came out of my retreat, I did a lot of things that were uncomfortable. I had conversations with my dad that I never had. I remember wanting my dad to love me, and I remember wanting him to learn to like just basically read my mind and know what I want. But no, like, and that's the same thing with him. So as soon as I was in the retreat and I told Maestro Jerry, I told him that I wanted my dad to love me. He's like, he tapped me. He's like, sorry, mija, but you're going to have to show your dad how to love. And like, I was just like, like tears rolling down my eyes because I'm like, I have to teach my dad how to love. Like, it's just supposed to be the opposite. But Maestro told me, he's like, your dad didn't grow up with that love. So sometimes you have to show them how to love. And when he told me that, I came home and my dad's love language is hugs, like touching. So when I came home, I realized that everybody has a different love language. And so
Mhm.
I got close to him and I was talking to him at first, right? But he was kind of looking at me like, what did they did to you over there? You're not the same. Like he literally
Who is this imposter?
and I was like, Dad, like talking to him, kind of like what I learned from that experience. And I remember asking him to forgive me. He was like, it's okay, Mija. Like, basically saying like, I forgive you. You don't have to carry that hurt for your mistakes. And I felt that like, he's just like, forgive yourself too, And,
Yeah.
and once I did that, like, I just felt like my words weren't helping. So I hugged him and I haven't given my dad a hug in like probably a while. Like we used to kind of bump heads. So we just never really had a connection.
Well, you know what? I'm glad that Maestro Jerry passed on that teaching, because I remember the first time that I went to a retreat and the first time that I sat in the sweat lodge, Maestro Jerry told me those exact words. And when I got home from that retreat, I gave my dad a hug. I just said, thank you for everything you've done for me. And I gave him a kiss on the cheek. And I had never done that my whole life. And my dad was just stuck. He didn't know how to receive it. And he didn't know how to like accept it. And he didn't know how to hug me back or embrace me back. Fast forward to 7 years later, now he gives me a hug and he gives me a kiss on the cheek. So for me, when I first heard those words from Maestro Jerry, I didn't believe him. But I said, you know what? I'm gonna put this to a test. and what it allowed me to do is now I have a different relationship with my dad. There's still a lot that we still gotta eventually talk about. And there's still some conversations that me or him are not ready for. But at least that gave us an entry point to say, hey, maybe this is how I want to be loved. So I think for me, you sharing your story really brought my dad into the circle. So I thank you for that. The second thing that comes to mind is that at that first retreat, one of the things that really amazed me is how people worked with their hands. I saw a person carving. I saw a person making a necklace. I saw the flowers that you were talking about. I saw the blankets that you were talking about. Like those retreats really brought out the beauty and the art of everybody. So let me ask you this question, is thinking about you and just your healing journey and how artistic you are as a person and how different medicines you have. Is there a different medicine that you want to talk about that brings healing to you, whether it is art, whether it's music, whether it's writing, whether it's poetry, whatever it might be? Is there something else that you connect to that helps you with your healing journey?
Art is my most precious one. I love doing art. I would say it first started as a coping skill when I was 15. I would do it just when I was in like classes, like, when they help you and they give you activities. So that's how I started. I was like, okay, I kind of like it. Like, I like coloring, whatever. But then I didn't want to color things. So I started doing my own things, like drawing my own ideas. So at first, it was kind of just a fun activity. But then after that, like, I figured I was really good. And I just had a lot of pain at that moment. So I kind of took advantage of it. I was like, you know what? You know how the word painter? I was like, I have a lot of pain already. I just need the turn. I was like, I just need to complete the thing already. So as soon as I started, like, basically acknowledging my gift of like that I was able to do some pretty raw work, I was like hooked. And I was drawing so much. And people, at some point in middle school, somebody was like, "Give me my name." And I was like, okay. I charged them $2. At that moment, I didn't care. I was just like, $2, I'm rich. But I was just so excited to like somebody like want my art. I was like, really? Like, you want my art? Like, I never felt that love. So once I felt that, it was just like, I could do this for fun. Like, I could use my pain, paint it into something. Because at first, I didn't really like had the patience. Like I said, I learned to have patience with art. I used to want my art to be nice and I want it fast and done and boom, ready to go. I even wanted my own stuff to be put away by themselves. But no, that's not how it works. You have to you have to clean up all your mess. So I was like, that's one thing I had to learn too. Like so I'm like, if I'm being honest with you, art was my biggest gift of like how to heal. But recently it has been planting. And I would say I'm a mother of like 50 plants outside that I rescue from the street. And I'm so happy. And it has brought so much healing because when I'm outside with my plants, I basically look at them like my personality or like a human, like humans need water, they need air, they need sun, but not that much. It's just like how it's bad for us, it's bad for them too. So like, it's kind of like a reminder to self-care, to take care of my pot and fertilize it. There's just so many things that I learned from planting. And one of them, it's always like, one of the most important things that I learned from it, and I think it's because I like to be grounded and know where I'm at, is the pot. The pot's a very important spot for us, like where you sit and where you decide to surround yourself, it's how you're going to grow. So I always think that for myself too. So when I'm doing my plants, I also like fertilize it. I make sure it's a nice pot. It fits them. It's good for the roots and ready to go. But what's crazy is that okay, it gets comfortable, right? It's living life, and then it starts to overgrow the pot. And the pot's like, hello, you need to move on. So they teach me to make those changes within myself too. And there's so many things that I get from plants that has made me like so much of a caring person, made me realize that I need water too, which, yeah, sometimes I forget to drink my water. I'll be drinking too much juice. And I'm going to be honest, I love juices. So I do have to drink my water, surround myself with good energy and grow. And it's okay to have those days where you're not okay. Because sometimes my plants be panicking. And one day of no water, they'd be like dying. I'm like, hold up. I was busy my whole day. I had things to do. But I feel like that's where a lot of my healing has come through. Right now, currently, it's through plants.
That's really cool. I mean, I grew up with my grandma having 2 gardens, and it was like you would go and help grandma in her garden because grandma wanted you to go help. I mean, she loves those plants and her worms more than she loves us. I stand by that comment. But I never realized for her, like, especially after my grandfather died, like, that was her healing purpose. Like, that was how she was taking care of herself, was by taking care of these plants. And you always knew how good grandma was by how good her harvest was that season. So, I appreciate you sharing that. And, we're going to move on to one of my favorite questions. And it's my absolute favorite question. It's my little catchphrase now on this podcast because I love asking it. I feel like you especially you're just going to have like such an amazing response to this question. And I'm so excited to ask it. And it's, if you had a microphone and a stage, what issue would you like to bring to the light?
Yes, I have so many issues to come to light. But as who I stand and where I come from, I decided to surround myself with this because there's already organizations that do involve themselves with this. But a lot of fear comes to me and a lot of like bad anxiety. I always wanted to talk about my immigration status. So immigration issues, people that struggle with getting documents, people that are even just scared to take that step. It's not that it's not possible. It's just the fear, the anxiety that comes with being an immigrant. And for me, it was I wouldn't say I was never able to accept that of me. I think for me, we're all free in this land. I don't think nobody's an immigrant. I feel like just like butterflies migrate for their sake of purpose and for what they do, we all have to. So I always never wanted to talk about and be like, I'm an immigrant or I don't belong here. Like who I am, I know that I belong here and I'm sacred and I am more than that. So I feel like for me, talking about this purpose always brings a lot of anxiety. It also brings a lot of confusion to me because I'm not fully aware. And for me to talk about it always kind of like triggers me because I'm like, I need to have more information before I speak on it, And so that's why I'm like, right now I'm like stepping into that part of myself. And if I were to grab a microphone, I would be like, we need to come together and just create peace. So I'm like, that seems very, I wouldn't say unrealistic to me. I do believe that people could come together and work together to create something amazing. We have amazing brains. It's just how we decide to use them, you know? Because there's a lot of people that have great ideas, but then a lot of the bad ideas have also come from humans. So it's kind of like we're able to create something good if we believe in the positive side, you know? So I always think of that, like, if I could talk about something, it's how much of an impact we could all do if we could work together with our differences, how we could learn from one another, and how beautiful each culture is. And I just feel like embracing each one of us and acknowledging that we're all kind of the same in a way, I just feel like would bring us much of a comfort of like, not so much, hey, I wouldn't want to like make people feel excluded if I'm talking about certain things. I want everybody to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if I were to make everybody feel part of an issue, I think it's making everybody feel involved and just acknowledging everybody. So that's just me. If I would have want to talk about something, it's coming together, uniting. And if there's something that I would like create, like as a little, just a little purpose or something, I would like to create events for people to like come together and just like talk about like healing, like how I've been part with NCN, like make that more of a thing, you know, like I feel like sometimes people are so used to like not talking about this that it makes them uncomfortable. I want to be able to like bring this thing to the world that it's okay to like talk about pain. Like I just want to bring more healing to the communities. And I know that's possible and I've seen it. So I think if I were to have my crew, I'm like, you guys need to make more healing circles. You join healing circles. But I have a lot to say and do, but I've always been like so passionate about people learning and growing within another. So that's one thing. United we stand, divided we fall. So I always stick to that.
That's true. And you know what? I think all of the three things that you highlighted right now are all interconnected. Because, you know, when you're able to really understand other people's lived experiences and where they come from, it allows you to connect with them and it allows you to start that healing journey and start that reconnection journey. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you mentioned at first is being an immigrant. I don't think people understand the struggle of not feeling like you belong anywhere. And feeling like, you know, when they said ni de aquí, ni de allá, that's real. Like I was never Mexican enough for my Mexican family. And then I was never American enough for my American friends. And I was always stuck in the middle. And when there was opportunities presented to me that they would say, you're worthy of this. I want to give you this job. I want to give you this opportunity. I want to give you this. And then you have to say, but I don't have a social. Mm-hmm. And then people telling you, well, then I can't give you this no more. Like that's heartbreaking.
It really
and that made go ahead.
It really is. And I think I didn't want to really say that part of myself or bring it up. And it's good that you brought it up because I live in that feeling of like, if my future, you know, I want security. Yep. Just like everybody wants their security and wants to own their things. I want to own those things. And and I should be capable of doing so, no matter of my status, you know, and it does bring a lot of anxiety. It makes you feel, at some point I felt suicidal. I never really talked about it, but I tend to forget about that feeling because at some point I wanted to get into this job and I couldn't because I didn't have a social. And I remember being so sad, being so bummed out, and I just felt like I didn't have nothing to live for. So if there's one thing that I learned from that feeling and that rejection was to work harder and to dream harder and to never stop dreaming and to believe I'm a dreamer, like how they say. And I hope that DACA brings more opportunities to me and I'm able to get into it. I know there's possibilities, but it's also like that scare of like that rejection. That's what brings me anxiety. Like I could go and try it, and then once I get told the no, I'm like, I'm never going back.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I just want to acknowledge what you just shared because I've been there. And, you know, I will say I'm still a dreamer. I'm fortunate enough that I am a DACA recipient right now. But before that arrived in the mail, that sense of like, am I worthy? Should I be here? I should just end it, because, it's just a sense of no longer having hope. And what you talked about right now, it's real, because I was there and I felt that. And that was my solution, because I felt like I keep getting rejected. And all for what? One little piece of document? You're telling me I'm smart enough. You're telling me I'm worthy enough. You're telling me I'm intelligent enough. You tell me I'll work hard enough. But that one little paper that validates me as a human being, I don't have. And for that reason, you have to take that away from me. And that part, what you just described right now, there's so many people out there that are too scared to say, I'm in that situation, too scared to say, I'm an immigrant. They're too scared to say, I don't have those documentations. So we just survive and suffer in silence. So I just want to say thank you for lifting that up. And anybody that might be listening to this right now that might be in that space, we got you. It's a hard journey. And I'm still battling that damn journey because I don't have my papers.
Yes.
But we're gonna get there.
And it's possible, and I think that's what has led me to discover a lot of things about myself. My art, I could have a business, I could still have a bank account. There's just certain things that I want to do, and that's always been is to go back to my homeland, to where I was, and be able to come back. Like, if I were to go, I wouldn't know where the liquor store is at. I wouldn't know where none of these things are at. Like, the mercados, I'll be lost. I'm not familiar with it. But if I were to come back over here, I'll feel safe because I know this is where I was raised. But it's also something that I want to experience and go back because I feel like it got taken from me too quick. And it kind of, that's where a lot of pain comes from too. I had to separate from a lot of things so fast that I didn't really get to, let's say, a goodbye or have that closure. So I feel like going back has always been something that I want to have for myself, to heal, to be able to be like, it's okay. That sacrifice you took, it was for something, and I always remember myself that the sacrifices that my dad took is what makes me go harder. Like, it just makes me a chingona, like strong, and be able to know that I could create so much greatness, whether with that paper or not. So I'm motivated. Do I work for it every day? Yes, I want that. And every day I'm just getting closer to it. I've gotten a lot of opportunities to be able to have papers, like documentations that other people don't have proof of. So the fact that I have proof of certain things, like school documents, that I went to school here, it just opens that door for me a little more. But then like I said, like, I've talked to lawyers sometimes and they're like, well, you need this or you need that. You need $1,000. I'm like, damn it, that I'm out. But
So you in a year.
so it's like I always, it brings a lot of anxiety, but anxiety is one thing that I think it's because I worried so much my future, and that is because it does involve my future. So that's why I'm like, I do give myself the credit, and I push myself to work harder. I always say I always have like this different hunger, and I always tell my little nieces, don't get comfortable. Just because tienes papeles doesn't mean that you don't go out in the world and miss out on the opportunities that I don't have. Like, you better go and get them. I'm sorry, but you have the opportunity. What are you waiting for? And I always remind myself that, like, I don't have those things, so I have to stick to myself to doing the right thing and doing the right choices and just doing what is right. Because if I mess up, I don't have that second opportunity. I don't know. I just feel like I always have to be on my 10 toes, and I always have to work. And I know that all my work one day is going to be paid off, and I'm going to be able to rest and feel secure. So I do keep those positive thoughts, and no matter what I'm facing. And I think having my family and knowing that I have them surrounded with me and we're all in the same shoes, but like every day we sit down and have food and I feel rich. I feel rich with them. Like, I feel like that's all I need. But then once I get out of that, I remember that I don't have certain things. So it's like a balance of like the life here, and I don't know, like, I always say this to myself in a funny way, but it's very harsh. I always say, pero querías norte. And then, like, no, I came here for a better life, and
Yeah.
I came here for the opportunities. And sometimes I feel like they're broken dreams, but
Hmm.
I keep dreaming. I still have faith, and I think that's why I'm like, I am who I am.
And that's the important part, that, you know, we're still dreaming. And I'm glad that you say que queríamos norte, because that brought in my mentor, Mario Suna, who every single time we say, well, we got to get to work, he always says querías norte. So for me, you know, he came into my mind right now for two reasons. One, for that, and the second one for what you described, harmony. He always reminds us that harmony is not the absence of baggage, but the balance of my gifts outweigh my baggage. And that's okay. We're still going to stumble. We're still going to struggle. There's still going to be some things that trip us up. In mine, in your case, it might be documentation. In other people's cases, it might be relationships. It might be lack of food. It might be lack of housing. Everybody's going to have baggage, but we're hoping that we do enough healing that our gifts outweigh our baggage. So I just want to let you know that we got your back, and whatever you need and whatever process you need, we got your back. I know NCN has, you know, reiterated that they got my back, and we're in this together. But as we start to close up for today's segment, you know, I'll pass it over to you first, and then to AB. Is there any closing remarks that you want to make sure our listeners walk away from? We talked a lot about, we talked gardening, we talked art, we talked healing circles, we talked, you know, baggages, we talked about issues we want to bring light to. There's a lot that we discussed, but is there any last minute advice, any closing remarks that you both want to share before we close up today?
One closing remark is enjoy the summer.
Mm.
Take it easy on yourself. And it's kind of like that. Right now, we're seeing all the things we planted in the spring, during harvesting time. And summer, right now, we're seeing everything come to light. Give yourself the time to rest and just breathe in and just accept what this part of your life brings to you and acknowledge it as something that's making you grow. And I also say that when summer ends, it's time to let go of certain things because fall comes, and fall is the season of, leaves start falling. But one thing that always stays is what? The tree. So I always think of that. Like, right now we're just, okay, the leaves are dancing, but at some point we're going to need to let go. So I always say, just have fun right now. Enjoy what you have going on. Worry about the worries later and just enjoy the moment. I always say that to
Beautiful.
myself. So that's my last remark. Enjoy the moment. Smile, laugh. I always say laughing is good. Surround yourself with laughter. Get up, even though sometimes it's hard, and push hard. 'Cause I'm saying that out of what I just woke up this morning. Sometimes I don't feel good, but I always say I have something to go for today. There's sun outside. There's life out there, and it always uplifts me. So yeah, wear sunscreen too. But it's also good to go outside and enjoy the summer right now.
Oh man, AB, anything you want to close us up with?
I just want to say a big thank you to Addie for joining us today. I've gotten the honor and privilege of sharing space with her throughout these years, and I'm very grateful to finally have her on the podcast. I knew it was going to be a great episode, and you just proved me right. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to our listeners for joining. Make sure, if you haven't already, to, follow to our social medias, La Cultura Cura on Instagram and National Compadres Network on Facebook. And this podcast is available anywhere. I'm plugging real quick. And thank you to my co-host for, always helping me with these amazing podcasts and making the beauty that we do.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Can I say one more thing?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. Thank you to the listeners too. I forgot to say thank you. I hope you guys take whatever I said and learn from it, and yeah, just learn from it. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Addie. The biggest thing that I took away is that our experiences and our struggles don't determine our worthiness from you. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your garden with us. Thank you for sharing your medicine with us, your art with us, and everything else, your story from, relationship with your pops to, the relationship with Sandy and everybody else in the circle. So I just want to say thank you again. I look forward to continuing to be in space with you. This is not the last time that we're going to hear from you. We're going to have you in every single platform possible. So thank you. And again, thanks to our listeners for continuing to connect with us. We will definitely be back next month for another episode. In the meantime, sending blessings to everybody all around the nation, from our family to your family, from our ancestors to your ancestors. Gracias, and may you have a beautiful rest of the week.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.